So I want to give you guys a couple of big recommendations for podcasts and some books that I listened to while I was first getting started. I don't actually listen or read to as many books as I do now as I did back when I was first getting started, because back when I was first getting started, everything was so fresh and I was so impressionable. Every piece of information was extremely valuable. And there was really two podcasts that really helped me out during that time. The first one was called the MFCEO Project, which actually no longer is a podcast. However, those episodes can still be found on iTunes and Spotify. But it was a good 4 years that I listened to this podcast, and it's by the CEO of 1st Phorm. His name's Andy Frisella. And for myself, I was in a place to where I was in the part of my journey where I was just really struggling and didn't really have any direction. Listening to Andy Frisella, who was very real and raw about his successes and failures, helped me understand that just because I wasn't successful right now doesn't mean that I won't be extra successful later down the road. It really put into perspective my journey, and whenever I was feeling stressed out, I would listen to an episode of Andy Frisella, the MFCEO Project. I would immediately feel better. It would just really help me get some perspective on like what the reality of entrepreneurship is. So that's one that I recommend listening to. Like I mentioned, the podcast is no longer making active episodes. I think Andy Frisella switched his podcast to a new show called Real AF, which is a little bit more political and it's a little bit more expansive beyond business. But the MFCEO was the podcast I listened to that really helped me shape my business principles and my values in my entrepreneur journey. The other podcast that I recommend is called The Game by Alex Hormozi. Now, Alex Hormozi has a lot of hype these days and he absolutely deserves it. But I was listening to his podcast back in 2017. So I was following Alex when he had less than 10,000 followers. He was super underrated. Like I mentioned, he deserves all the success he has to this day. A lot of the podcasts that I listened to back then were him just simply documenting the things that he was going through and the things that he was learning as he was building his business, Gym Launch. And for myself, it helped train me to become more of an analytical and logical thinker behind my business, because listening to Alex think is absolutely incredible how logical this guy is and how number-based this guy is. You know, just hearing him talk about the numbers and the data of his business really helped me understand how I needed to think about my business and how I needed to pull the strings and levers in order to make stuff happen in my business as well. So those are two podcasts. The other one I recommend is just a soft plug for my own podcast called The Journey Podcast. And really what we do there is just share tips and tricks on how fitness coaches can get their online coaching business started and off the ground. So if you're an online coach, you're a fitness coach looking to start your online business, definitely check out The Journey Podcast, because there you'll be able to find a ton of golden nuggets to be able to help out your business. Now, with moving on to books, I actually still read a lot of books. The reason why I read books is because I love having the physical thing in my hands, and it's a way for me to consume information. The reason why I don't listen to podcasts anymore, honestly, is because I love music too much. If I'm gonna have headphones in my ear, I'm always gonna put music in over a podcast. Books is a way for me to consume that information. Now, when I was first getting started, a book that really helped me out, this is the first book I ever read in personal development and entrepreneurship, was Rich Dad Poor Dad. What Rich Dad Poor Dad did was taught me that there was other paths in life for success and becoming rich outside of just working a 9 to 5. And so at that moment, I understood that, damn, there's actually a whole new world out here that I could learn about, and it set me on my journey. And so if you're just getting started, read that book, because it's gonna teach you the possibilities of owning your own business and starting to invest in yourself. Another book that I read that really helped me out was a book called The Way of the Wolf. This was a sales book by Jordan Belfort, and it really helped me understand how to make money for myself by selling products and how I can use body language, tonality, and the words that I use to inspire someone to take action and inspire someone to actually work with me. Whereas beforehand, I was just like, hey, here's my service, this is how much it costs, and just hoping that someone would buy it. Whereas after I read that book, I realized that there's an actual dance in exchange of value when it comes to selling your services and actually leading to the sales. So that book really helped me nail that in. And then the last one that I recommend is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This is a really great book about a Holocaust survivor and his experience in the Holocaust. And essentially what it was all about was the differences between those who were strong going into the Auschwitz camps and who ended up dying versus those who made it to the very end. And really what it came down to was the meaning that you place behind your suffering is ultimately going to give you purpose through your life. And I read this at a time where I was having a really hard time with my life. I was busting tables, breaking my back, getting home at 4 a.m. in the morning. Reading that book really put into perspective that I can either make this suffering mean something, or I can let it all go to waste. Because the reality was my situation wasn't gonna change in that moment. How I chose to view that situation was totally in my control. It really helped me put into perspective when I'm having a hard time, that the hard times can either mean something or mean nothing, and that's completely up to you. So those are the top 3 podcasts and books that I recommend for anyone starting their journey. If you guys wanna check them out, definitely let me know what you think. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.